The hallways bustled with the usual morning chaos, shuffling feet, the slam of lockers, chatter about tests and teachers and trivial gossip. But amidst the commotion, she walked quietly, always 5 minutes early, always with that same bag. Her backpack was massive, almost too big for her frame, pulling her shoulders down slightly, making her look like she was carrying the weight of a world no one else could see. Students often whispered as she passed, "Does she really need all that stuff every day? She's like a turtle with a library on her back. Why doesn't she just use a locker?" She never answered those questions, not because she was rude or aloof, but because no one ever asked them to her face. No one asked her much of anything, really. She was just the quiet girl with the heavy bag, the same ponytail, the worn shoes, and the eyes that always looked tired, even on Monday mornings. Her name was Lila. She sat in the third row, never in front, never in the back, blending in as much as someone with such a noticeable burden could. The teachers liked her. She always turned in assignments on time. Her handwriting was neat, her work thoughtful, but she never raised her hand unless called upon. Even then, her voice came out so soft that the class would pause, tilting their heads just to catch what she was saying. Mr. Graham, her English teacher, noticed how she came in early, sometimes before he even unlocked the door, how her sleeves always covered her wrists even in the heat, how she never touched her phone like the others, and how that backpack never left her side, not even during breaks. One day, just before class started, he tried to make light conversation. "Lila, do you carry a small country in there?" he joked, nodding toward her backpack. The class laughed. Lila smiled politely but didn't respond. The truth was, she didn't know how to explain it. Not in a way that wouldn't make the room go silent. Not in a way that wouldn't change how people looked at her. Because her backpack wasn't just heavy with books. It carried her life. Tucked between textbooks were packets of instant noodles, a Ziploc bag of almonds, and a reusable water bottle she refilled in the bathroom sink. In a separate pouch, she kept a roll of socks, a tiny towel, a change of underwear wrapped in a grocery bag. There was a small flashlight, half-used toothpaste, and a travel-sized deodorant. In the front pocket, Band-Aids, a tiny notebook with tightly scribbled poems, and a folded photograph of a woman smiling beside a birthday cake. Lila's backpack was heavy because she didn't go home after school. Not really. After her mother passed unexpectedly, her life unraveled. There was no father in the picture. Just an aunt who offered her a couch but made it very clear, "You're not my responsibility." The atmosphere there was cold, sometimes cruel. So Lila stayed out late, lingering in libraries and cafes until they closed, pretending to study when, in reality, she just didn't want to go home. Some nights, when her aunt's boyfriend was over and the yelling got loud, she slept in the schoolyard bleachers, wrapping herself in her hoodie and curling into her bag like it was armor. No one knew, and still she smiled. She turned in her work. She held doors for others and whispered, "Bless you," when someone sneezed. But every now and then, her mask would crack. She'd zone out in class or blink away tears when she thought no one was looking. Except someone was looking. Jaden, the boy who sat behind her in chemistry, noticed first. He was popular but not loud, athletic but kind. Most thought he was just another confident jock. But Jaden had his own history with quiet pain, and maybe that's why he noticed the way Lila's eyes sometimes dimmed when no one was watching. One rainy afternoon, everyone was huddled indoors. Jaden watched as Lila carefully took out a granola bar from her bag and ate it slowly, like it was her only meal that day. He'd seen enough. He walked over, sat across from her, and asked without any pretense, "You okay?" Lila blinked, startled. "Yeah, I'm fine." Jaden paused. "You always say that, but you're not, are you?" She looked down, unsure how to respond. No one had ever asked like that before. Not with sincerity, not with patience. She didn't open up right away, but Jaden kept showing up. A simple hey in the morning, offering her half his sandwich during lunch, pretending he needed help with homework just to sit beside her. Slowly, like sunlight creeping into a locked room, her walls began to soften. She told him bits and pieces about her mom, about the couch, about how some days she hated the sound of her own stomach growling because it reminded her she was still here, still surviving. Jaden didn't pity her. He didn't treat her like a project or a charity case. He just listened, and that, more than anything, made her feel seen. Word never spread. He never told anyone, never made her story his to share. But something shifted, not just in Lila, but in how others saw her. It began with little things. A classmate offering her a seat at their lunch table. A teacher slipping her an extra granola bar just in case. A librarian extending her time in the reading room without saying a word. It was as if the world finally started paying attention, not because of what she said, but because of how she carried herself despite everything. One week, the school announced an essay contest. What strength means to me? Lila hesitated at first, but one evening, tucked inside the library with her backpack at her feet and Jaden across the table doodling in his notebook, she pulled out her laptop and began to write. She didn't use names. She didn't describe her pain in graphic detail. She just wrote about a girl who carried weight no one saw, and how strength wasn't loud or obvious. Sometimes it looked like getting out of bed when every muscle told you not to. Sometimes it was showing up even if your heart felt too heavy to lift. When she submitted it, she didn't expect to win. She wasn't even sure if she wanted to. But a few weeks later, her name was called during assembly. As she walked to the stage to accept the award, backpack still strapped tightly to her shoulders, something incredible happened. The entire auditorium stood, not because they knew her story, but because they felt it. Somehow, her words had touched a nerve in every person who had ever carried something silently. For the first time, Lila stood tall, and for the first time in a long time, the backpack didn't feel as heavy. Lila stood on that stage, the soft hum of applause washing over her like a gentle tide. She didn't smile broadly, nor did she cry, but her eyes shimmered with something different that day. Something lighter. It wasn't just the applause or the certificate in her hand. It was the realization that her story, one she thought no one would ever understand, had made people feel something. After the assembly, people approached her. Some just nodded. Some offered quiet. You really deserve that. A few even said, thank you for writing that. I needed it. These weren't grand declarations or overnight friendships. But for a girl who spent most of her days unseen, each word felt like a light flickering on in a once dark hallway. But life outside that auditorium didn't magically change. Her aunt still snapped when she came home late. The couch still felt like it swallowed her whole some nights. Her backpack was still her portable sanctuary, stuffed with survival. What changed was her. She started to walk a little taller, shoulders still burdened, yes, but now carried with quiet pride. She joined a school poetry club. She didn't read aloud yet, but she listened, took notes, scribbled in the corners of her worn-out journal. Jaden still walked with her to the library, but now others joined too. A girl named Mia, a boy named Eli. They formed an unofficial after-school group, half study, half survival. One Friday evening, after a long cram session for finals, Jaden offered her something that startled her. My mom says you can come to dinner with us. No pressure, but she made lasagna. Lila froze. She didn't know how to respond. No one had invited her to dinner since her mother died. For a moment, her instincts screamed, say no. Don't be a burden. But something inside her, something warmer now, whispered, maybe it's okay to say yes. She said yes. That dinner was awkward at first. She didn't know what to do with the napkin on her lap or how to accept second servings without seeming rude. But Jaden's mom treated her like she'd known her forever, asking about school, about her favorite subjects, her dreams. It wasn't prying. It was welcoming. That one dinner became two, then more. She didn't move in. She didn't ask for charity. But on the nights when home was too loud or too cold, she'd stay for a movie or help with dishes just to stretch out the comfort a little longer. The backpack still came with her. She never left it behind. But now, she didn't guard it as fiercely. One day, Mr. Graham pulled her aside after class. Your essay, he said gently. It's being published in the district newsletter. Would you be okay speaking at the next student leadership conference? Lila blinked. Me? He nodded. Yes, you. Because your voice matters. She didn't say yes right away. Speaking in front of strangers felt like walking barefoot over glass. But that night, she reread her essay, and she remembered how it felt to be seen. So she said yes. She wrote her speech on the back of old handouts, rehearsed it in front of the mirror, fumbled, rewrote, practiced in a whisper, then louder, then again. The night before the conference, Jaden handed her a tiny pin, just a small golden feather. "You're stronger than you think," he said. She tucked it into her jacket pocket. The auditorium for the leadership conference was twice the size of her school's. The crowd was bigger, louder, full of teachers, students, administrators. But when Lila took the stage, everything else blurred. She saw the mic, her notes, and a few familiar faces in the front row. And she spoke. Her voice trembled at first. Her hands shook. But the more she talked, the steadier she became. She spoke about invisible weight, about what it means to show up when everything tells you not to, about the kind of strength that doesn't scream, but whispers, "Keep going." The room was silent, awed, respectful, moved. When she finished, they stood again, a standing ovation, not for perfection, but for honesty. Raw, beautiful honesty. That moment led to more opportunities. She was asked to contribute to the school blog. Her teachers recommended her for a mentorship program. Even a local radio host reached out after reading her essay online. But Lila never let it go to her head. She still carried her backpack, still held the door open, still whispered thank you when someone passed her a worksheet. The difference now? People saw her and not just a backpack. Then, graduation came. It wasn't flashy. She didn't have family cheering in the front row, no banner, no flowers. But she had Jaden. She had a few teachers who believed in her. And most importantly, she had herself. When her name was called, she walked across the stage with quiet grace, the backpack slung over one shoulder, the golden feather pinned near her collar. Her smile was soft but radiant. In her speech as student representative, she said, "We all carry things, some visible, some hidden. But just because no one sees your pain doesn't mean your strength isn't real. If you're here, if you kept showing up, then I hope you know you are already brave." That summer, she got a scholarship. It wasn't full ride, but it was enough. Enough to say goodbye to the couch. Enough to move into a small dorm where the bed was hers and the light switch didn't belong to anyone else. The first thing she unpacked in her new room was the backpack. She didn't throw it away. She placed it on the chair by the window like a reminder of where she came from and what she survived. And next to it, she placed a photo of her mother. Years later, Lila would return to that same high school not as a student, but as a guest speaker. The auditorium was newer, but the smell of old wood and teenage dreams lingered. She stood on that same stage and saw herself in the quiet students. In the third row, saw the next her and a girl clutching a bag that seemed too heavy. So she told her story, not to glorify struggle, but to remind them, you don't have to carry it alone forever. Because yes, her backpack was always heavy, but her heart, it grew stronger, wiser, kinder. And that, in the end, was the real weight she chose to carry, one filled with hope.